welcome to Room Escape Divas, your podcast on everything escape rooms. This week for our Designer Spotlight series, we are joined by Michelle and Yacine of Society of Curiosities. Woo!
Hello.
Hello, and welcome. This might actually be the new year too, right?
It might be
in the new year.
Yeah, your name is Errol.
Exciting. My name.
I'm Manda.
Yeah, my name is Errol.
I'm Manda.
Man hands.
Yeah, man pants. And we are joined today by, as I said, Michelle and Yacine of Society of Curiosities. And we're very excited to finally get them on our Designer Spotlight series because as we've said before, we've talked to you quite a bit now. And
all the time.
I got to work with Michelle in the Escape Jam. It was super fun.
I just talked to Michelle in my head half the time. It's amazing.
Imagining all the great conversations.
It's like Michelle also joins us for our Escape Enthusiast meetup. So for any of you who have joined that, you will see her there. She's usually working too. So in case Yacine is thinking, what is she doing? Is she not working? No. She is working hard. I'm working, I think. And then she'll also show us all the different things that she's working on. But you might be thinking to yourself, what is she working on? Because somebody is talking too much.
So, Michelle and Yacine, why don't you introduce yourselves and talk about all about Society of Curiosities and what it is and where it came from.
Yes, I'm Yacine with Michelle. So Society of Curiosities is a solve a mystery by mail series. We started working on this last year, 2019, because we're in the escape room business originally. We owned Kawai escape room, which we decided to close in March because of the ongoing pandemic.
So. Oh, he's showing our envelope.
Yeah, I'm like photobombing it with your stuff. Sorry.
Yeah, so we were working on that already last year, and when the pandemic hit, we went full throttle, hit the gas. So we were a few weeks away from having a finished product already, and we took our escape room experience and put it into games that you can play at home that have that same feeling of exploring a space and finding things.
Awesome.
Cool. And also Yacine is from Canada.
Yes, up in Montreal.
And sadly, because I know Michelle.
And we're from Canada too, in case people don't know that.
Well, in case it wasn't painfully aware already, as we mentioned.
Why is it painfully aware? What?
We mentioned it a lot.
What if this is their first time listening and they don't know that?
Okay, but the listeners' first time listening, you mean?
Yeah, well, it might be Yacine's first time listening, or Michelle.
My mom will listen, so she'll want to know this.
That's true. There you go.
All right, so we are in
Michelle's
Toronto,
mom.
Canada. I heard from Michelle that you missed your usual trip this year so far because of the pandemic, which is sad. I agree. I just found out that I could order Montreal food to be delivered to Toronto, and I'm seriously
from Montreal.
Yeah, Schwartz's Deli and everything. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And bagels.
Okay.
So what do you mean?
Oh my gosh, it's amazing. We learned how to make cheese curds so we can make poutine at home.
Yes, I saw that.
Getting 2 gallons of milk from Costco and making cheese curds so we have fresh squeaky cheese poutine.
Oh wow, that is cool.
That is commitment.
Everything we do, we go 100%. Everything. From games to cheese curds.
So do people come over then and wonder what you're eating, and it's like, oh, just have some poutine?
That's kind of cool about a pandemic is we don't have to invite anyone over.
True.
More cheese curds for ourselves.
Yes.
Yeah. So you mentioned, you used to have an escape room, like a brick and mortar one, and luckily we got to play the game before it completely closed down. So what was it? So first, I guess, what introduced you to the escape room world, and as a follow-up, I guess, when you decided to go to a paper take-home puzzle game, what were some of the more interesting differences that you found with designing for that one versus designing for an in-person one?
Yeah. Wow, that's like the whole episode right there.
Yeah, there we go. And
So
go.
it was
That's why
exactly-
we invited you. It's all good.
We'll just keep talking now. Have a break. Have a coffee.
Yeah, I'll just go grab a Coke, you know.
It started in 2015. We were in Montreal, go Canada. And our friends suggested this escape room and they said we might like it. So we went, we played with his mom. And immediately I'm like, when can we go again? Like,
Yeah.
when's the next game?
Yeah, so we built then an escape room in that we have a 30-foot Airstream trailer. So we built a witch's den for Halloween that year.
Oh,
And our
cool.
friends came over and they played, they had fun. And we're like, the spare bedroom, Valentine's Day serial killer.
So,
And then
sorry, did you do this in Montreal or back
that was
when?
back home in Hawaii.
Okay, so when you were back in Hawaii. Oh, okay, cool. Continue.
And,
Sorry.
And then Michelle said, there might be a market for this. We should consider going commercial. And I was like, no way. It's not a thing. Escape rooms are not a thing. In 2015, very few people knew about them, right? Maybe
Yeah.
if you spoke to most people, they had never heard of them. So to quotation marks, prove her wrong, I set up a fake website with fake games and a fake booking system that did not take credit cards. But and sure enough, within a couple of weeks, random people were finding the fake website and trying to book our fake games. And I was like,
I'm right.
yes.
Yeah.
That is quite the length to go to prove someone wrong. Like, I'm gonna just make up an identity and make up a business and creating a website for it. Even that's dedication right there. To
Yeah, well, he's a what are you?
I'm a software engineer by trade, mostly
Are
web
you?
work. So it was, well, first of all, we're both entrepreneurial to start with. So I was actually into the idea of doing it if there is a market. I just didn't think there was a market. So
Right. And then
it
you
took me
had.
one evening to build a fake website.
So what do you do when
I think
So
we
when
have
people-
to move this inside. Hold on.
It's raining so bad. I bet you
Oh.
can't hear us. We're not getting rained on, but
Oh, good.
Oh
Okay.
no, we
Audio
can
could be
hear you
really
just
bad.
fine. I can
Yeah,
hear the
yeah.
rain.
We can hear you perfectly.
Yeah.
well,
Okay.
okay, as long as the audio is not crazy. Okay, well that was like a
Yeah.
timeout. There,
I
in
can
case
hear
you-
the rain ever so slightly, but not much at all.
perfect.
So
Great.
Now I'm sad that we won't see your chickens.
yeah, they're probably hiding now.
Yeah, they're out and about.
Oh,
I'm
man.
a fan of eggs, if you didn't know.
I think I have heard that a couple times.
All times.
So the fact that you have chickens are really exciting to me.
So what I'm saying, so when you created this fake website and everything, and then you had to disappoint people, what were their reactions? Were they more like, oh, I'm coming to Hawaii and I was hoping for some escape room fun?
Weird, right? I don't remember, but we did get back to everyone saying, sorry, it's not real.
And you've probably heard this before, but when escape rooms were first coming into the market, people didn't know what an escape room was. So we had people coming up and thinking we were like recreational marijuana room, even though it's not legal. Like
Want
they
to
thought-
escape, man?
yeah, just like the ideas of what people thought it was amazing. Like we'd have people knock on the door and be like, "Is it a place I can just go sit?" Like, oh my gosh, wow! But Kawai, we're basically aside from Guam, which is a territory in the United States, we're basically as far away from the U.S. as you can get. So people here don't always know about what's kind of up and coming. So we had a ton of education to do to the local market about what the heck opened up in the middle of town.
Yeah.
Huh. And
A lot
and
of
I would
people
assume you were obviously the first since nobody knew, right? And were you the only escape room in Kauai?
On our island, yes, on Kawai. We opened a couple of months after the first one in the state in Honolulu, which is a much bigger city.
Cool. That's really cool. And so once it opened, people were curious, came by, and then I imagine that a large portion of your players are tourist based and that kind of thing. Was that the
Yeah.
case?
Yeah. So it started off with locals coming, just being curious. Of course, we worked it all ourselves in the beginning just to cut the cost because, of course, it's slow when you start.
Mhm.
And then tourists started to come, and then we relied on TripAdvisor. Once you get good reviews, people do anything because the reviews are good. So we had like pretty much 5-star reviews, which was great.
Yeah, we ended up our 4-year run with an average of 5 stars across the board. So
Actually, that'd be a good question. That, you know, people think when they go to Hawaii, it's a great place for beaches and surfing and other things that involve being outside. So, and then, you know, you are competing against that. So were you still finding a lot of people just wanted to escape the world?
The beaches?
Yeah, that's the challenge of having an escape room in Hawaii is you are not the reason they come to Hawaii.
Right.
No matter how good your game is, people will not come for the game. So we saw like a day like this, it's a little rainy. Those are the perfect days. That's when you're like double booking, bringing in extra employees.
and if there's 2 days of rain in a row, we actually had to wake up early because people like at 7 o'clock in the morning, they're like, oh, it's raining again. I don't want to spend a day in the hotel room with the 6 kids, and they want to book something like fast.
They're like panicking for something to do because, as you said, everything's a lot of outdoor activities here.
Yeah.
And so how did they find you? How do you is it in your advertising, indoor activities perfect for rain?
Yes. So we figured out on a whim, we set up ads for what to do when it's rainy on Kawai. And you can like have a super high budget because it's per click and no one searches it if it's nice outside. But if it starts raining, we would always show up at the top. So that was our only marketing that really worked. Otherwise, the beach wins every time.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
But we would get a couple owners, maybe like we've had about 5 owners visit us from time to time. And it was always so much fun because we're so isolated here that we don't get to talk escape rooms. None of our friends on islands care. Like, I feel like over half my friends never even played our games ever.
That's okay. That's
Oh,
really
Like, come for free, come, like, come play what we create. And honestly, like, it's fun to be on your podcast because you were one of our like 2 lifelines to the escape room world when we weren't traveling. We would listen to your podcast early on, like, and watch read Room Escape Artist. Those were our 2 to be like, what's going on in the real world that's not like Hawaii.
In the real world.
But when owners came, it was so much fun because we'd go out for a beer afterwards and just talk shop. And you know how it is. You
and
can
complain about enthusiasts. I mean, that's also a lot of fun too.
Of course.
Yeah, I do. I do that anyway. You said something that, you know, when they wake up at 7 in the morning for your clients, that when it was a rainy day, then they need something with 6 kids. So were a lot of your rooms like child friendly for young people, or how many people could go in there at a time?
Yeah, we had a game for up to 8 that was non-linear, pretty friendly to large groups, played really well. And our games were, say, average difficulty for the escape room world. So we did tell people 14 and over if there was not going to be an adult. And then kids younger than that are going to miss a few things and will need assistance. And that worked pretty well. So the people came with like 8 and 10-year-olds, and they would like do 2 or 3 things and just enjoy the decor.
Yeah, and scavenge. Kids are amazing scavengers.
They are.
Yeah.
We need just like I don't know if it'd be like I need to pay a child to just
I know,
come into
because they're
escape room with
already
me.
low to the ground and they can see things down
I
there.
don't know what labor laws that would be violating, but you know.
You say come for a free fun activity.
Yeah, that's true.
Don't even
That's
have
also
to say
that could also sound creepy if you think about it, though.
It's very creepy.
You tried to lure young children again.
I know,
Free fun activity for children. Leave your parents at home. Yeah, like no.
Yeah.
Unless they're good at logic puzzles. Anyway, so moving on from your brick and mortar, so you decided to create a take-home puzzle game, and so what prompted you to do that? Was it had you played them before and you're just wanted to make you just had a burning desire to make one on your own, or had you just sort of heard of them and thought you would try it out?
Yeah, so we've played a few. We played the mass market ones, and we actually sold we were very picky on which ones we sold in our escape room, but we sold a few in our escape room because they're great when you can't play one or when your budget doesn't allow. But for us, the big factor was we love creating, we love sharing what we do, but as we just said, your reach is fairly low when you live in Hawaii. And you're not going to get to share what you do with that many people when you're on a tiny little island. So we wanted to do something that we could share with more.
No, I hear that. Actually, that's one of the reasons we stopped doing our large scale events because it was an awful lot of work. And yet, it was really only restricted to a few people. And that's it. And they were only one-time events. Why I run a lot of my why I run the puzzle hints now is because there is that larger reach, and there were a lot of people that would tell us, "Oh, I want to try one of your things," and so now I'm not restricted by the locality. No, I get that totally.
Kind of like community theater where you rehearse for 3 months, 4 months, and you put on a show for 2 weekends.
Oh yeah,
and done, like the whole set, all the costumes, all that work, and then that's it.
That's it. Yeah.
Nope.
I feel for there's so many amazing games that will never get recognized because they're just not in a place that gets the traffic. Like I know Quebec City does get some traffic, but there's an amazing game that we played in Quebec, but it's never going to get on the top charts of places to go just because how many people are going to Quebec.
Well, actually, surprisingly enough, not that this is going to be a spoiler, but there are some finalists were from Quebec.
Yeah.
And in the Tupricas that I'm talking about. So although this will be later, so fortunately, by the time people see this, it won't be any spoilers. And I'm not going to say who won because I forgot, but I do know logos very well. Yes.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, and yeah, but agreed. Like amongst the enthusiast community, we heard like that. Like places like Quebec City had some amazing games. It's just got to go a bit further than Montreal. We've been to Montreal, amazing games there too. But yeah, like unless a ton of people are going there, that's why I'm thankful for. And if they ever do it again, if David and Lisa get their tours up again, I would actually love to go on one. Because that was my plan, right? I was actually going to try and go on one of their tours and didn't end up happening. But that's what's great is that they bring you to a locale that you wouldn't normally necessarily go to. You'd be with people. You'd have other players with you as well, convincing
that would want to play.
Yeah, convincing my friends to go on a trip to another country and then mostly play escape rooms is like, most people don't want to do that.
No, they don't.
Having a dedicated group of people who are just, let's totally play 8 escape rooms in one day and we'll be happy with that. So getting traffic to those places I can understand is quite difficult. So in society, go ahead.
We were also intrigued. So we played a few before doing market research, which got us to play a few more.
A lot.
And then we were very intrigued by the idea that this is the real world. You're not going into a set. Like you don't. There's like the suspension of disbelief is different, and we kind of crafted our ideas around the fact that you're at home or at the headquarters, but you don't have to imagine yourself in a different role or a different environment. You are you, and you're solving a real life case. That I think is something that is slightly different with the play at home games when they're done that way. There's many different styles, of course.
Yeah, that's one thing I did notice with we've played your first game. We played it together. And one thing I think, and you can comment on this.
I have it here. With my address that I showed.
Yeah, with their address too, no less. And
No, their address is not in here.
Okay, that's good.
Eldora Pennywig.
So yeah, that's one thing I noticed with at least when take home games were starting, was that the general tone that they were trying to go for was we can mimic the immersion that you feel in a brick and mortar escape room, which just it's not the case. You can't mimic that experience. And so the take home games, yours included, where I do still feel immersed, it's because they're finding other ways to immerse you into that without trying to like recreate. Isn't it just like being in a dungeon? This piece of paper that has a picture of a dungeon on it, and you're like, no. I mean, it's still fun, but if you're gonna try and tell me that I'm in a dungeon, then no.
Oh, well, she was also asking about the challenges in design, how different designing like a mail order or paper-based game is from an escape room. Oh, there goes the chicken.
There goes the chicken.
Like, give me attention. But it was interesting when we sat down to start designing. We thought it wouldn't be hard. We're like, we've designed like probably 8 or 9 games prior, so we know what we're doing and how to do it. And then you start to design, and you're like, okay, the chicken's going off. We're like, okay, you can't touch anything. There's no surprises like a hidden door opening. You have to change your whole mindset about what is fun for a player, because those big those big wow moments in a game that are, in retrospect, really easy to do, right? Like, you just pop in a hidden passage and people are impressed. For the most part, you hide it well and people love it. You can't do that in a paper-based game in the same way.
Mm-hmm. And I think something that helped us in our design process is I have a Dungeons and Dragons background.
Yay!
I used to run what became for a short while the biggest D&D blog on the internet from 2007 to 2010, before it became cool again. And then I did some freelance writing for Wizards of the Coast. So I was like really immersed in that, like game master, like telling a story by, and everyone has to just making people buy in just by your words or your text and all that, which is very different than the immersiveness of the physical escape room.
So do you still, DM for games on the internet?
Yeah, this year's been slow without the weekly gathering, or I should say monthly. But yeah, I had a game for the holidays with my friends from Montreal. Went off, and yeah, it's always fun.
So the one I have in my hand, I think, is your first one. Was this your very first one? And now you're up to, I know you have we'll talk about your Kickstarter as well, but how many games have you sent out since this first one?
So there have been 3 main mysteries, and we're getting ready to send out a 4th. And then we had 2 online mysteries as well. So you don't have to wait for something to arrive in the mail. You can just start playing whenever, wherever.
Nice.
Yeah, and actually one of the online digital only mysteries is free when you subscribe, or if you buy it before, you get that discounted from the subscription. So we do want people who are excited to play, like we want to give them something right away until they get the big tangible package.
Yeah.
Well, that makes total sense. And now that you are like veterans in making these take-home escape room games, what are some of the things that you've learned now that you've sent them out? Or maybe it's just like you've been doing it perfect ever for a whole time.
I didn't say it, but no, just you're always learning. I mean, even with escape rooms, we would be tweaking our room 2 years in. Like, players change, and it's really weird that you see ebbs and flows of things people do in a room. You can have a room for 1 year and no one tries something, and all of a sudden in 1 week, 3 people are trying the same thing. I don't know how that works, but it does. So one thing that was kind of eye-opening for us was the caliber of players are out there. We see a lot of people on this island. They're not puzzlers. They're not advanced like Puzzle Hunt, really experienced puzzlers, as well as the tourists. Often a tourist, it's like their first or second game ever. So the low-hanging fruit is almost just perfect for those people. You can have a story-driven game. You can be immersive. Everything can be within the story, and you really craft that. But the puzzles themselves are usually very basic because it's new to people.
Yep.
However, with these games, the first market that we hit were the puzzle people, and they are truly puzzle people, and they are amazing because they've experienced so much and they're so well versed in puzzles. So that was a learning curve. We had a cipher in the game. And what we didn't expect is people will sit down and solve a cipher without the key. Like in an escape room, you would never do that. You're like, okay, here's a cipher. I expect down the road they'll tell me how to do it because you got an hour. Whereas our games don't have a time limit. So people are like, yes, a cipher, I'm going to crack this. And you're like, no, play by the rules that aren't spoken anywhere.
That's one thing we will often, we will wait in an escape room. We will wait for that cipher key, even though we generally know how to crack it or how to solve it, but that's because we don't want to mess up the flow and we don't want to skip a puzzle. So we will wait for it. Like we'll wait till they provide us the information and then we'll put in the answer just so that we don't get lost and suddenly we've skipped 3 puzzles and now the game, host doesn't know where we are in the room and now we don't know where we are in the room and that has happened before. So we learned our lessons that way.
It was really nice. In one room we saw Morse code. It's like, oh crumbs, we're gonna have to find the Morse code. And it's like, oh no, it's just on the back. Yay, we don't have to search for the key to Morse code. The answer is this.
Yeah. And there's those people that are like, I have it memorized. You're like, no, wait. Don't wait. No. So we learned from that. So our first game had a cipher that could be cracked, and now we've reversed it. So you don't get the cipher until you know how to crack it. So it's a simple little fix. But
so you give the key first and then the actual message later.
Yeah, and that's simple, right? Like, in which we're still not doing really, really hard puzzles because we want to be accessible to a lot of people. We can find ways of gating the puzzles so the more advanced players can't crack it early.
No.
Well, the time thing is interesting because one thing we didn't know coming from the escape room world where all the games or most of the games are now is people do burn out after an hour of puzzling or after 90 minutes of puzzling. So we added artificial breakpoints or semi-artificial when like act 1 is done. It's like, it's a good time to take a break in a story, of course, and then you have to text continue to the character in the game to get the next step. So a lot of people take us up on taking the breaks and then they pick it up the next day or even 30 minutes later. Because our games, you have to interact with the characters or team on the ground. So we get to see a log of all the messages that come in.
That's right. I wondered, I remember we played your game and we did have to message, we had to text somebody and I thought it was some sort of auto responder. No, it was you guys because like we got a text back from you and then we started working on things and I got another text like, how you doing? And we're like,
that might not have been us though.
No, that's probably automated. When the game is new, you played it pretty early. We get notifications that the AI didn't know what to do. So we can jump in and reply, but it's even at the first, it's 90%, and over time it becomes 100% automated.
And we like to track our players. Like it's fun to build that into the AI. Like you can have a character being like, "Hey, can you hurry up on that?" Like,
I think it was like, the bad thing is coming. Like,
I remember
seriously,
that now.
right the heck now. And I was stressing out, and I was like, "We're fine. The bad thing is coming."
That's just built in. We're like, if it were real life, what would the person say? Would they just wait for you, or what would the response be? So we program it to come after so long to be like, hey, really, like this is really happening. So we just really put ourselves in the position of the team on the ground and what's going on and how would they respond to whatever is happening.
When people ask the team on the ground, hey, what do you think we should do with this? And they're like, well, I thought that was your job because we can't solve the puzzles for them.
Technology is amazing. So speaking of that kind of segues into the other thing that you incorporate, and I've seen incorporated into other play-at-home games, are some ARG elements, right? It's not just about the puzzles on the table. there's also things on the internet that you have to search, and you've made up fun websites and everything that people can check out. And I found that when other people were when my teammates were busy solving, I might just be reading the website to see all the other stuff on it, because it's not all of it is an answer, so it's kind of fun. So when you decided to do that, was it another way to immerse players, like kind of bring the real world, a bit
We
of the
know
real
that
world to them?
Yacine has the ability to make fake escape room
Yeah.
websites.
So now that I know that you make like fake websites all the time, apparently, uh, so this must have been a piece of cake.
Yeah, it's a great way to add some immersiveness. You have people ask themselves like, is this real or is this part of the game? That's always a fun moment. And it's a great gating mechanism, so you don't overload people with 20 different things to look at the beginning of the game. You only get 5 or 6 things, and then at some point they find a website, and then you can take a few minutes to read the website, or like try to see if any one page is important. And one thing that's stressful about that, though, so a lot of our website content through our games, you don't get the actual URL, you don't get a website address, so you have to Google it. And when
Oh no.
we set it up, we have to hope that Google does their part of the bargain and they pick it up and they don't serve some other random content. So it's always a stressful moment during beta testing. It's like, you have the right idea, but I just built this like 6 days ago and Google has not picked it up yet. So we hope that by launch time.
There's been one website that it didn't pick up consistently. So we had to buy ads for the web for that place. So when you Google this term, the ad for the site pops up, and then you get there. And that was just kind of like a mechanism until it really kicked in. But we don't want our players being totally lost either.
Yeah,
It's almost like what you need to do is like get all your friends who are never going to play your games and just get them to Google the term so that it gets picked, and click on your website so that the traffic can go up a bit. Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Oh my gosh, that must be stressful.
So you both should be really good at SEO now, right? Is that what?
There are so many funny conversations where we're trying to come up with words that make sense but are obscure enough to register at a search.
Yes, you'd be surprised if you try to find the name of a fictitious character and you are literally making up words, but that's someone's name.
Someone's name. There's their LinkedIn profile.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's more time consuming than you would think.
And so you have what is it, 4 games? I'm just on your site right now. And that's fun. One of the other things I saw was in Maddox Treasure was that you did incorporate some fun actual like history in there as well. Is that a theme throughout all of your games, or was it specific to that one?
Yeah, for Society of Curiosities, everything is, reality based. So kind of going back to Errol's question about the ARG stuff, that's part of it, right? Is making it really closely parallel to the real world. So we do a ton of research, even down to like our last game, I've had to research handwriting. So like, the game starts in the rainforests of Brazil in the 1930s in an archaeological camp. So there's letters written by the archaeologist, and it's in handwriting, but I had to research what handwriting would he have learned in the early 1900s to write that letter. And then we hired someone who was a specialist in that type of handwriting.
Wow.
To make the note real.
And Michelle does she does some research, and we buy things from auction websites. We're like, we don't want to buy your furniture or your ancient map, but can you scan it or send us a picture? So we get the rights of real antique objects and things that match the timeline. And
yeah, some people are like, what? And some people are like, sure, I'll take your money.
Well, it's a good example. Like, it's the thing I always bring up when people bring up like, oh, but you don't need to put like why do I have to put so much into narrative because nobody's going to notice it? And it's true, nobody's going to notice that you hired a special you write like a calligrapher to match handwriting from the same time period, but the end result of it is something that they will benefit from because that they'll just feel that much more into it when they actually play the game.
Or
And-
you're gonna find the one person that does
Yeah.
notice it.
Yes.
Exactly.
So
That's
this is for the handwriting historian nerd out there who who will look at it and be like, ah, yes, Brazil, 1930s.
Oh my God.
This is correct.
Yeah. We have one image, maybe it could be an Easter egg for anyone listening. We have one image in one game that we know is about 3 years off,
3 years off.
and someone called us on it.
Yes.
Wow.
1800s, mind you. It's not like 1995 or whatever where something significant happened that you would know about. This is from the mid 1800s. There's an image and it's 3 years off and they knew.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's amazing. Well, I one of my many nerdy habits is like I'll watch YouTube videos on like historian analyzes historical movies or like and that kind of thing. And movies are the worst. I just love watching them because they're usually like 200 years off, right? Like they're just so vastly off that sometimes it doesn't even happen the same millennia. I don't know, but but people will know like right down to the like month that something should have happened.
A long time ago, I used to be part of a nerd band, and we'd sing about nerd things. And we knew that if we got anything wrong, the
Yeah.
nerds would tell us. So and so fortunately, there'd be things I liked about. So if I were going to sing about Totoro, then I should know what that is. But if there was a slight detail off, then it's just like, just give up. Everything's wrong. So
Yeah, well, you think you know things, right? And then you realize someone else knows more than you think you know. So you
that's
better
usually my
check it
life in
to
general.
make sure you got it right.
Hmm.
So how much time do you spend like of the game design process? How much time is spent on research?
Wow.
Roughly
Gosh,
a
maybe
third.
A third or so. I mean, the research is going throughout. So, we start our design with the big moments, like the fun parts that we want people to be excited and delighted with. And then we we figure out the story basically. And then we kind of work backwards. The puzzles go into the story about what would make sense here, what's fun for people, what haven't we done in the past. And then as we start to design things, that's when we do a ton of the research of like, well, what would this item look like? We dig deep in like just items from the past to create things that look similar to them, or historical buildings, or just items from history. So a lot happens during the design process as we're creating each element.
Yeah. There's a big part of design and research that's sourcing. Michelle does a lot of work to find either the right manufacturer or the right image or the right object.
Or the right person to make the image.
Yeah.
If
So we have blog articles for a couple of our games that list all the artists that go into making a game. That's a good example of all the moving parts that come together for the right feel.
And the most recent one had like 5 different artists or more that we kind of hired for different things, just to get the game as authentic as possible.
So cool.
It's a lot of fun.
It's crazy. I mean, we Google the craziest things. Like, it's not a spoiler if I say about that.
No, of course.
Okay. Yeah, like one of them ones is, do tigers have hairballs? Like that was a Google that we find ourselves doing. And
So is the answer a spoiler?
No.
No, the answer is not often, but they do happen.
Oh,
Good to know. Now we know.
This is happening all the time. All the time we're Googling obscure, crazy things.
Yeah.
Well, I see you make paper too, right? That's what
Yeah,
see
so there's
you.
one component I needed a specific paper for. So I learned how to make paper for that one component.
Ridiculous.
And then it's just like a lot of ordering a bunch of things and feeling it. Like we don't want to do a game where you get 5-10 sheets of paper in the game, and they all feel the same from different sources. So, and we live in Hawaii, so everything's harder living here because we can't just go to a print shop because the print shops here are really basic. So we're always ordering samples and calling people. And I mean, every game is a new puzzle for us to solve. Like sourcing things, we're always out of our element because it's something that's real world specific, not escape room specific. So we're calling people and being like, so I need this. I don't know the name of it, but this is what I need. Can you do it? And these are like big companies who work with professionals in their field every day, having like this random person calling, sounding like a complete idiot.
Yeah. And they're like, yes, we can do it if you take a ludicrous quantity of it.
Yeah, like 32,000 is the minimum. And we're like, no.
Cool. So how about 50? How we feeling about that number?
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of fun. And Michelle's had a few days of battling aging paper. Some of the components are hand aged to get the right feel, and not all paper ages the same. You cannot just buy random paper at Walmart and put it in the oven and hope for the best. So we have our paper that ages really fast, or that slightly yellows, some that you can burn the edges, some that you have to stain.
Wow, this could be a whole blog post on how to age different types of paper. Like,
Yeah. And I've gone down that route with wax seals too. So for our Fairy Tale Files, which is our Kickstarter we did, the collector's edition has a breakable wax seal. So that's like old school, where the wax seal is not plastic. It's actually like a resin-based wax seal. And when you open it, it actually cracks. And of course, that's the original purpose of the wax seals, is to, provide proof of tampering. So I've ordered like 10 different sealing waxes and did this whole experimentation on which one
Cracks the best,
presses the best, which one cracks the best. So we're always doing these crazy experiments.
Mostly she.
He's doing the programming. So he's doing like the brainy, like get there and actually make things work.
I do remember, that when you were on one of our enthusiast chats, you were showing off your collection of seals.
Yes, I do remember that. Yeah.
That's
because you have your Society of Curiosities seal, and then you were comparing it with the other seals that you had bought for I guess collection purposes or experimentation purposes, or just
because they're pretty purposes.
They're pretty.
Yeah.
You just mentioned this. You've had great success with Society of Curiosities, and you've just finished a Kickstarter, a very successful Kickstarter. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? What's that one's focusing on?
Yeah.
Yes. So our Kickstarter was for the Fairy Tale Files, a series of lighthearted mysteries based on iconic fairy tales. So essentially taking the stories that everybody knows, adding a murder in there, and then having a little investigation around it. So it's going to be
murder,
simple and fun, not
lighthearted,
not like rated R murders, just like 13+ murders.
13+.
like you would like Murder, She Wrote murders.
Yeah. So I can give the synopsises, right?
Yeah.
So one of them is one of Cinderella's stepsisters is found murdered with the heel of a glass slipper. Another one is the candy shop proprietor is found incinerated in the oven, and Hansel and Gretel.
I think that's the one I'm getting, is the Hansel and Gretel one. Yeah.
Like that. And we have it was so much fun brainstorming for that. We have a ton of ideas of what we want to do, and of course only a small fraction is going to make it into the games.
But that's the thing, is the society is so rooted in reality, because it's so important to us to make it feel real, that the Fairy Tale Files is basically the exact opposite for us. We get to, take a very loose fairy tale, which has already been lost in translation anyway. Like, who knows what's real? And we get to have complete creative license with it, and we get to make everything up, which is so much fun.
That is so much fun. So I imagine, do you feel with designing for these ones, do you feel a bit freer in your design ideas because it's less grounded in reality, because because there isn't a history necessarily to adhere to, and everybody and their mother has an interpretation of fairy tales.
Yeah, so I think it's a lot easier to come up with ideas because you don't have as much why questions to answer. However, I think we're going to have to do a little more work on the visuals because it's not the real world, so you have to paint more of an image. So that's a little more work and a little more difficult, I think.
Yeah, well, there's every game we do, Fairy Tale Files or Society or something else, there's always like the fear of don't mess it up. You know, Fairy Tale Files is going to be different because it's so much more creative and storytelling, because it's a fairy tale. But we have so many people who backed us because they love Society of Curiosities that we want them to be happy. And so every game, every Society game, Errol, you probably know this too when you design games, like there's a huge pressure because people know you for what you do. They either love you or hate you for it. So they hate you. That's actually great because you have nowhere to go but up. But if they love you, like you want them to continue loving you. So every game we have this filter of like, what are they going to love? Like, how do we keep them happy?
We get alerts when the first person plays the first game, like the first time it's in the wild, we get an alert. It's very exciting and nerve-wracking.
Ooh. We could ask Errol because Errol knows a lot about beta testing because he's in it right now. We can talk about the fun of beta testing.
Oh boy.
Yeah, we should always talk about beta testing. So here's a good question, because you guys have mentioned that you are on an island with not maybe as big of a network of players at your disposal. How do you go about beta testing, like sending out those materials and that kind of thing? Do you mail physical materials to people, or do you try and get them to do kind of a print and play version of some sort, or a digital version that they can get their hands on?
It's everything.
Everything.
It depends on what we have. So some parts of the game we don't need to have a physical component, and other parts you have to have that item because it's the item specific for that puzzle. So it all depends. The funny thing is like we have a few enthusiasts that we could tap into here, but then they keep buying our game, and then we do not beta test with our players because they're paying us. So like we keep losing our beta testers. So we're like, no, don't buy. Like let us, or maybe it's just such a bad experience beta testing that they're like, I'll buy it when it's better. Because you know how it is, like the beta, your first beta, the first person to try your game, you almost have to apologize in advance. You're like, I'm so sorry. Will you please try this?
Yeah.
It's true, right? Like as you guys get more popular, people are going to want to play the real game, and suddenly this pool of beta testers starts to shrink. So how have you found your beta testers so far for your Kickstarter, for instance?
Well, we haven't beta tested that yet. We had people fund us Game Unseen because we wanted to see if people wanted the game. We didn't want to build a game and then go to a Kickstarter. So we kind of went backwards from a lot. But we have used so many methods. We've called on friends, we've called on family, we've called on enthusiast groups. We've done everything. And what we do now, since we divide our games into 3 parts, we actually test all our parts can almost be played separately. So we test every part separately now. So there's not one person in the beginning who gets stuck with like a 2-hour long crappy game. Like they might get 1 hour crappy, because it's just honestly, a game's never good until you polish. Like, I've never made anything that's amazing straight out the gate.
No, it's impossible. It's impossible.
Yeah. I mean, I think I could do it. I believe I could if I just played the hits. If I just took puzzles that I know I have done before and people can do and made a really basic beginner level game, it's totally doable. But when you're trying to stretch and try to create something new,
that's so hard. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. How about Errol? How about you? How's it going? By now it will have been done. By now, like in the future now.
Is this your?
We don't have to talk about it now because this is Society of Curiosities time. We can talk about when the thing's over. Then I can tell you all sorts of fun stories. It's all good.
We're just trying
Needless
to
to
talk.
Needless to say, Errol is testing out a game right now, and I actually recorded myself. I played one of the first versions of the completed game. So by the time people play the finalized version, it's going to be the puzzles are going to be quite a bit different from what I played. And but needless to say, it has generated reactions, and Errol's having a ball watching the reactions, but also like it's interesting to see where people get tripped up and to have this live chat of beta testers who are just constantly giving their feedback and to pick out the common threads. Like, I had problems with one puzzle and I'm the only one that had problems with that puzzle, right? I think
Part of the art, right, and beta testing is selecting your group well. I mean, knowing who the game is for and selecting samples for that. Like, for us, the hard part is people keep buying our game after beta testing, but we want to beta test with some people who have already played our games with the society, especially because it's a subscription service. So you get 4 episodes in 1 year, and that has an overarching story. So the first game, we can hold your hand a little more. You learn the mechanisms, you learn the world, you learn the possibilities. And by the second, third, and fourth game, you understand how we work. So when we give our games to someone who is brand new, who's never tested with us, but it's the fourth of the series, the problems they run into, like not knowing to Google something, are not problems that our experienced players should be having.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Knowing your audience is really hard if you start to run out of the audience to beta test with, right? Yeah, and then sometimes, like when you do, as you're talking about, you're starting something brand new with your fairy tale, like you don't really know if they'll like it, or will this suddenly reach a whole new audience because it's fairy tales, and people that brings with it a fan base that's like, oh, I'm totally gonna buy this. I don't know what it is, and then all of a sudden it's like, there are puzzles here. What on earth is happening? It's like, oh, it's so hard.
Yeah, well, we built the fairy tale files with a larger market intent. Our goal is, once we fulfill our backers on Kickstarter, is that we get the whole production streamlined so it can be produced out of house, and then we can sell it to escape rooms to sell to their players. So something a little smaller of a box, a little more shelf worthy. Like our society is meant to feel like a real world thing, so it comes in an envelope addressed to you, whereas the fairy tale files is not going to be as personal. It's more of a box game with still our style of mystery. Yeah. So we've built it with that in mind. And once again, it's a whole different audience. It's not, it might be a little easier for the enthusiasts, but those aren't the people that are visiting most escape rooms.
Yeah.
No, exactly. Totally understand. So much fun. Eh?
Oh, it so much fun.
All the beta testing.
Like, there should be a beta test support group where you call someone and you're like, hey, I'm beta testing tonight. Are you available afterwards to cheer me up?
Yeah.
Like,
oh, wow. Maybe.
Well, similar to that. I mean, like, it's not even just beta testing necessarily. When you create anything, when you do anything creative, recently I had to, I can get back to it now. I'm writing a script, right? And during the summer, I had workshops for it. So my very first workshop, it's very much like a beta test in which we do a reading and people react to it and they tell me what they got, they tell me what they didn't got, they tell me if they understood the story. And it had been, I'd been in the acting world and the writing world for a few years, but it'd been a while since I had anything of mine workshopped, and it's frightening. And the very first workshop I had, they decimated it, but in a very constructive way. They were all professionals, they were all actors and writers themselves, so they would brought up what they liked. But you're right, and I have my I always allocate myself 2 days after a workshop to have my pity party. Yeah. And then once the pity party's done, I can actually go back to my notes and look at the criticism more objectively and think, oh yeah, they were right. That totally doesn't work. I should change that. But it's hard when you know this thing you've poured your heart into, you put it in front of these cold judging eyes, and people are not afraid to tell you what they think, especially if they are in that community.
And we actually see the opposite. People are so nice. Maybe Errol, you see this too. I think it's also you don't want to feel stupid. So like when you're beta testing, you try so hard, and we're like, don't try hard. Like if you're frustrated, get a hint. We want to know when you use a hint, when you feel stuck. And they try so hard that we're like, I don't think this is real world. And then of course you have, like you said, that reaction, like that kind of like visceral reaction. We're like, we need to change it all. None of it's working. Like it's horrible. And then you need a couple days to come off of that to be like, all right.
Yeah, when I came off of it, I said they decimated it, but when I go back to my notes, I'm like, okay, they said like 5 things. But you hear like 5 things and you're like, well, it's all crap. That's it. It's done. It's better.
Yeah, you got to look at it subjectively and be like, okay, that was one test. Like you said with Errol's, you're the only one who had a problem. But in that moment, as he watches it, he's probably thinking, oh no, this is awful. It's so bad. Maybe
Errol never thinks that. Errol's like, yeah. He's like, maybe you're just bad at it. No,
no. The thing is, no. I don't think that at all, because I think it's easier with puzzles because it's not so much. Because what I'm looking for is someone who there's no way they are going to pick up what I was trying to do because their brain doesn't work that way. And that doesn't mean either our brains are bad. We just all think differently. And so I desperately need to find those people because it's like, okay, how can I get you there? How can I get you on that track, which is really easy for everybody else? Not everybody else, but for maybe half the people, right? And then there are things that I forget. Like in one of my games, in fact, I'll spoil it now because it's not big of a spoiler. I had there was a date in it, and it's my anniversary. And the first 5 people who played it.
We know Errol so well. We know this about him. What his
my anniversary. And so I didn't even think about it. And then all of a sudden, I started to get other people who don't know that. I was like, how do we find this? I was like, well, I told you at the beginning, but it was just at the beginning, almost like an off comment. Okay, I got to figure out a way to keep calling
You told them an hour ago, then expected them to remember it. And the people who know you did, because they're like, well, this is a game about Errol, clearly. Because he's just putting all the facts of his life in here.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. And like you said, Michelle, it is subjective because the second read through I had of that script, by the way, went swimmingly. Everybody loved it. So it's like, but I don't know. Yeah.
The script not changed.
Not changed. Yeah, I changed not a thing, and then maybe tweaked a couple lines here and there, but I wanted to see what the same script would do to a different group of people first before I made any drastic changes. So yeah, it's a beta test, right? You need to actually get it through multiple people to see if the same thing happens.
Yeah.
One worry.
And he has to talk me back off the cliff. Yeah. I'm like, we're horrible. We should stop. This is awful. Just go back to a regular job. And he's like, that was one test.
Yeah, that was test number 1. And it doesn't matter how much you prepare yourself for that stuff too, right? It could happen 50 times to you. And each time feels like the freshest, right? Each time feels like, all right, well, this time is the time that I'm going to be a fraud and I'm terrible. So, yeah.
But he handles all the customer support as well because of that. Because everything for me is like, oh no, they had one question, we're awful. And Yacine's like, I will answer your question. Because everything for me is either amazing or off or horrible.
Take refunds.
There's 2 big filters in my life. One is when we get reviews or criticism. I have to read it first, just pick out the good parts and then sandwich the bad parts between the good parts, the compliment sandwich thing.
Yeah.
And then movies, I go to parental guidance movies and does the dog die or does someone die that you care about before I decide to watch it with Michelle?
It's funny. Puzzles are interesting that, in my opinion, it's easy to lose the emotion of a game when you're so puzzle focused. In an escape room, people don't want to read because they want to win. And I think that's our challenge for all of us puzzle designers and escape room designers, is how to deliver a plot and kind of make it merge seamlessly with your puzzle. And so Errol, your thing wasn't as devastating to me because I'm kind of more in an analytical, I'm in an analytical mindset versus like an emotional mindset. But your story still came across, but I can handle. But you know, that's our job, is how do you get the emotion, the plot to come through when people are puzzling. Like we did a proposal at the escape room, and it was amazing because the guy hid the ring in the chimney, and it opened up and he was down on one knee, and there was a little poem he had written, and the guy he was proposing to was reading it, and he's like, "What does this mean?"
Oh, romance gone.
Yeah, he's like, I don't know what this means. And he turns around, the guy's on one knee, and it doesn't click that he's getting proposed to because he's in puzzle mindset. So the emotion, the love letter, the profusion of love was a puzzle to him.
Right.
That's the same thing with me in horror games. If there were no puzzles, I'd be petrified. But if there's puzzles there, it's like, I gotta solve this. Just take the chainsaw man and just move over for a bit, okay?
Can you stop that for a second?
Yeah.
I have a puzzle to do.
Super annoying.
So I remember this one. Sorry, yeah.
Oh yes, that was a great one. It no longer exists, unfortunately, but it was made by people in the haunt industry. They opened an escape room in Honolulu, and one of them was a killer clown, like a Chainsaw Massacre killer clown, and it was so well done that Michelle left before the end. She spent half the game in a corner, and then their hint system was a creepy marionette, like a puppet
that talked to you
by first names, like Michelle, come here. Michelle's like, I am.
It's just like, come closer. I'm like, no, I am not coming closer. I do not need a hint.
That was good. We lost.
We
that
lost.
game.
Yeah, it's like, I will sit here and lose the game before I come talk to you. Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh man.
Oh, that's hilarious.
One of the hard things about talking to Michelle and Yacine, especially about the Society of Curiosities, is that because we talk to each other on a weekly basis, almost all the questions that I have, I've already asked her about.
But other people might not know about
No, I
them.
know, but that's just it. Nothing is coming to mind because, like,
Everything.
Yeah, I think maybe one thing to reiterate, if you haven't played our games yet, try the Mysterious Map Heist, which is a digital adventure. It's only $12, and if you decide to buy the subscription, you get $12 off. So it's essentially free, or you're going to hate us.
$12 are not going to hate us.
Yeah, and then we have some more projects in the works, but we can't talk about them yet.
oh,
Ooh, fun.
projects.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, and amidst, sitting through rain and chickens, and
Oh, we missed the chickens. Oh,
we heard them.
I know, but
heard
they're
them.
gone now. I haven't heard a chicken in a long time.
Maybe they're content.
They're not laying eggs right now, or else we would go get an egg just for you, Errol. But
Oh,
they're
that'd be
taking a
nice.
break.
Yeah, they're taking
Yeah, like winter break.
So if people would like to go find out more about Society of Curiosities, where can they go?
They can go to societyofcuriosities.com or just Google Society of Curiosities. And if you're interested in fairy tale files, you can go to fairytalefiles.com and sign up for updates. It's not available for order yet, only to our Kickstarter backers, but it will be very soon.
There they are.
Ta-da!
There it is.
Ta-da! Fantastic. Well, I can't wait. And the next time you guys are able to go to Montreal, we should try to plan around that and actually
Ooh,
visit.
that would be so much
Yes.
fun. We can do a food tour and an escape room tour.
Oh,
We'll mix
So I think that's essentially what we do. We just eat lots of food and play
Yeah.
lots of escape rooms.
That sounds perfect.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks again, and I will talk us out. Room Escape Divas is brought to you by Inverse Genius. You can go to inversegenius.com to find other fun podcasts just like this one.
Oh, I
You
should
can
go to
email us.
inversegenius.com. Oh, I've always been trying to do this. Oh, that's us. Crumbs. There we go.
There you go. There you go. Look at all the podcasts they have. They have the Party Game Cast. They have on-board games. They have the Inverse Genius ones. All sorts of fun things. So do check it out. You can also email us at roomescapedivas@gmail.com.
Oh, is that
We love
written
getting the
anywhere?
emails.
Oh, look, it's there for contacts. Wow, imagine that.
Are you unaware of what's on our website?
Maybe.
You can also go to our Facebook page, click like on the Room Escape Divas Facebook page, and we also hold community meetups every Friday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can find the details on our Facebook page.
Oh, hey, you published something. Oh, I didn't
did
see this
publish that.
post.
Yeah, that's you being super quiet while everybody else is loud. This is consistent with
That's
Errol.
true to life.
His waveform is freakishly small. Anyway,
I'm trying to find our meetup. Why don't I see it here?
but look at the upcoming events on the left.
Oh.
No, to the right, slightly down.
Oh, right.
This is going swimmingly.
It's going swimmingly.
Oh, look at them all.
Look at them all. So there's the Friday one. There we go. See that? Now people can see where they can find it.
And if people go and they're talking random things, just hang in there. It will talk about escape rooms eventually.
It will.
Yeah, pretty much.
Although
People bake
sometimes,
there.
when you were talking about that beta test support group, I think there was one time there were a number of creators in there, and then we were all just complaining. This is so hard. That was fun.
And if you're using Twitter, you can use the hashtag. Errol's doing a live thing here. REDivas.
What's there? Oh, dear me.
When was the last time someone used that?
I don't know.
Never. You all. Look at that.
I don't know how this works. Oh, well.
Oh, well, we'll figure it out. Maybe we should make a Twitter someday. We could use our own.
I'm not gonna make. Who's gonna? Oh, I got private messages. Oh, I shouldn't look at that, should I?
Looking at Oreos.
I don't know.
I don't understand.
I was trying to find RE Divas. How does this work? Oh well.
Oh well.
Hmm.
Okay. Well. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.